Rotten in Rio de Janeiro just 1 year before the Summer Olympics are supposed to begin, and it's causing an unpleasant problem for rowers. CCTV Stephen Gibbs joins us live from Rio. And Stephen, tell us all about what's wrong with the water.
Well, Mike, this involves the spectacular lake that is going to be the setting for the Olympic rowing. And over the last few days, it's become evident that almost every single fish in that lake is dying, and no one quite knows why.
It is traditionally one of Rio's most picturesque spots. But over the last few days, this lake has turned into a revolting spectacle of dead and dying fish. Residents here have been complaining not just of the spoiled view, but the smell, which is overpowering. It's a disgrace, says this man. And in just 16 months, this is where the Olympic rowing events will take place. Imagine having to train here.
These masses of dead fish hold us back. They break the boat, and the smell is really strong as well.
For someone like me, who works on the water, it feels strange in your throat. Your throat hurts, and there's something poisonous in the smell, which also gives you a headache.
Mass fish kills are not a recent phenomenon on this lake, which is naturally semi-stagnant. Its fish population is acutely vulnerable to changes in oxygen levels, which can be caused by a combination of rain, pollution, and consequent algae proliferation. But Rio's water treatment citywide is a major problem. This bay is where the Olympic sailing events will be held. It's also where 70% of the city's raw sewage ends up. The authorities admit that a promised permanent cleanup is chronically behind schedule. Efforts will no doubt be made to make sure that this view is improved for Olympic spectators, but will the underlying problem be solved?
Well, Mike, environmentalists here have been using this latest spectacle to highlight one particularly grim statistic about Brazil. This is a country of 200 million people, and only 50% of the houses in the whole country are connected to any sort of sewage system. And they say what we're seeing here ahead of the Olympics is a consequence of a lack of planning.
Well, Stephen, looking at some of the images from your report, not a pretty sight. Are these sorts of problems going to affect the games, and could the authorities actually change the venue for the sailing or the rowing?
Yeah, it certainly has been talked about here whether they change the venue, particularly for the sailing event in that polluted bay, which potentially could have a problem, cause a problem for the sailors. I think the latest is it's very unlikely that either venue will be moved. I think that the authorities here will make a big effort to make this look as good as possible for the time of the Olympics. But the bigger problem behind that is that when Brazil, and Brazil is not an exception here, I think this happens in many countries that are hosting big events, when they bid for the Olympics in 2009, they promised that they would clear up the waters, and that is one of the long-term legacies they said would be the advantage of having the Olympics here in Rio. And the Rio mayor has admitted that that's not going to happen. He says that he regards that as a historic mistake. He's sort of blaming all the people around him for that. So I think for the Olympics, yep, it will go ahead. It will look beautiful. Both places are spectacular. But long term, the water problem, the water treatment problem in Brazil, not yet finding a solution.
All right, Stephen Gibbs, live for us from Rio. Thanks so much.